Hello class, this is Brian from financialtrainingschool.com and welcome to BO205 pattern formations. So in BO204 I mentioned that was the last of the price action technique videos, and from this point onwards we're moving on to factors affecting how you use price action. Starting with this video, which is BO205 pattern formations, and then we're going to have chart setups, expiry times, and hedging strategies. Currently these are the only 4 videos I have planned since they're taken directly from my How I Trade Binary Options series. And as I mentioned in BO204, some of these will be copied over directly and some of them will be revamped. This video, BO205, and the next video, BO206, will be completely revamped. BO207, 208, I don't know yet. I have to watch those videos to see if I want to copy them over. If the content was done well, then I'll copy them over. If it's not done well, then I'll revamp them like I am this video. As far as this video is concerned, the chart examples are exactly the same as episode 4 of my How I Trade Binary Options series for pattern formations, but how I'm going to teach the lesson is different. So if you watched that one already, I still suggest that you watch this one, although you might be cheating because that one already has the answers in them, which I'll elaborate on later on. But before you watch this video, you must, and I emphasize this point really seriously, you must watch GT203 pattern formations prior to this lesson, because this is unlike the other lessons. GT203, I outline the theory of pattern formations. I go through each pattern and I show the characteristics of it. So you have to watch that one so that you recognize them, at least in the textbook, before you come here to look at the chart examples, and it will make more sense that way. So please watch GT203 prior to this video. So in this video, I won't be going into specific trade examples or details. The goal of this lesson is primarily to get you to recognize the pattern formations. So please refer to the price action technique video, so BO202, 203, 204, on how to trade your SR levels and trend lines, because all the trade examples are there, all the trading conditions and all that stuff is all there. Here, all I want you to do is recognize the patterns. That's it. And this being the FTS series, I want to try something new here, unlike the old How I Trade Binary Options series, which is part of my financial trading journal. So this one, since this is more teaching and more formal, pattern formation gives me a chance to test you, which is why I told you to watch GT203 prior to this lesson. So that's kind of like the prep work, and this is the test. And it's kind of hard to administer a test online, but we're going to try to make it work. So the majority of my viewers are older, so I know this because YouTube stats states that I think 85% of my viewers are between the ages of 25 to 65. So 85% of you guys are older than me. So depending if you have kids or not, you might play this game with your kids right now, or you might remember playing this game in your childhood. I Spy, right? You guys may or may not remember it. I Spy with a little I, something that starts with the letter B, or something color blue, or whatever. You know, that game. We're going to play that game here on each slide. But I'm not going to say the cheesy line each time. I'm just going to instruct you to look for a specific pattern formation. And then I will then tell you to pause the video on your own before I review what the pattern formation is. So, I mean, if you want to cheat, then just play the video straight through and don't pause it. But if you really want to test yourself, pause the video when I tell you to pause it, and then try to see if you can find where the pattern formation is, and then play the video again, and then I'll show you on the next slide where the pattern formation is. If you got it right, then pat yourself on the back. If you got it wrong, then hopefully you'll learn in the future. And then we'll just do this onwards for every example. So I'm going to go through about 15 chart examples. In each chart example, we'll have the generic pattern formation there to remind you what it looks like, but I won't show you on the same slide. So the first one is going to be blank. It won't have the pattern formation on there. And then I'm going to tell you to pause it. And then the next slide will show you where exactly it is, and I'll zoom in to show you specifically. And like I mentioned above, I'm not going through specific trade examples, but basically GT203 outlines this. You should always wait for confirmation, and pattern formations are basically a byproduct of your SR levels. You're not looking for these patterns. They just appear when you draw your levels. Also, one last thing before we move on to the chart examples. Do not, okay, please do not ask me about the indicators or the chart tools or whatever that I display on these chart examples. So for those of you that haven't watched the old series, these are from my own personal trading journal. So I may have my own annotations on them. I may have my trades on them. I may have different indicators, whatever. Ignore all of that stuff. Do not ask it in the comments below. I'm going to ignore you. Most likely I'm going to ignore you. maybe I might leave it on so that somebody can point out that you're an ignorant fool for ignoring my request. Do not ask me about the indicators. You can go watch the old series. One of the videos somewhere in there, I will explain the indicators. Otherwise, wait for it in the 300 series. At this point, I only have one 300 series video. In the future, when I have time, I will go through it and I will make videos on the individual indicators that I personally use in the 300 series. But I'm not doing that here. Alright, so before I start the actual chart examples, I just want to point out something. Not all of the charts will be on free stock charts, so for the past videos, they've all been on free stock charts, and you can basically find the details of the chart on the actual chart, because you can tell that it's Australian USD, and you can tell based on the number of bars inside the hours, this is a 5-minute chart, and you can tell by the date down here when it took place. But some of these charts, most of them I would say, are on MT4, and MT4 doesn't have this. It's in the top left corner, but it's kind of hard to see. So best bet for you to find out more about the chart is to look in the file name above. So for this one, it's titled 01, meaning the first chart example, and then ascending triangle, because that's what this chart example is for. December 23rd, and this, all of these you can assume it's either 2010 or 2011 chart examples, not 2012 for sure, because right now it's August 2012. So obviously it's not December 2012 yet. And then the pair, and then the time frame. So this is the 1-minute chart. Some of them will be the 5-minute chart, 30-minute chart, possibly maybe 15-minute chart, and I think I have a few 4-hour chart, which is denoted H4, standing for 4 hour, and maybe H1, which is 1 hour, and stuff like that. As for the actual chart examples, as I mentioned, I'm gonna tell you to pause the video. In between each pause, I will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before I move on to the next slide, just so that you have enough time to pause the video yourself. Because if I say pause, and then you miss the pause, and I go on to the next slide, then you'd be cheating essentially. So 5-second leeway so that you hopefully have enough time to pause the video before moving on to the next slide. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. So the first chart example, I want you to find an ascending triangle, which is a continuation pattern formation. Here's the generic example up here. Try to find it somewhere here. So pause the video right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next slide. This is where the ascending triangle is. You have higher lows, you have a resistance level, it breaks out. The check mark and X's on all of these chart examples means if it's a check mark, that means that's the typical result. If it's an X, that means that's the breaking formation result. So that's how it's going to work for all of the other 14 examples, for a total of 15 examples. So here we're going to do another ascending triangle, except it's kind of harder because it's a lot of jumbled with indicators and my trades and all that stuff. But basically there's an ascending triangle somewhere inside here. So pause the video right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you found it. And here it is. Ascending triangle is right there. You have the same thing. Higher lows, resistance level. It broke out. This is the check mark. And you trade the breakout. This is the 15-minute chart. So each bar is a potential entry. And then you draw your trend lines and all that stuff and determine your entries that way. Moving on to the next example. We have a descending triangle now. And this is kind of obvious depending on if you know what you're looking for, because I already have the downward trend line drawn. But anyways, pause the video right now, see if you can find it. It's kind of a big example. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here you can see the downward trend line, which was already drawn previously in red. I just drew it in black now to show that that's the pattern. The support level was drawn from way back here. It acted as support before already, and here specifically we're looking for it to break down because of these lower highs, and it did break down. And then this is a check mark, and this is the 30-minute chart, by the way. So you'd be trading each of these candles down after drawing your trend lines from here, and you just enter the trade. On to the next example, we have another descending triangle, and this is not as obvious as before since the trend line is not drawn yet. So pause the video right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you found it. It's right here. A big one again, but I didn't have the trend line drawn. So if you found it, congrats. If you didn't, then moving on. Hopefully you find the other ones. And you might also want to grade yourself, because out of 15, how many did you get right, for example? So here we have lower highs and got choppy around here. And this is an X because it broke formation. Technically, as you saw in the last pattern formation, it should have broke down. This one did not. It just broke up. it broke down later on, but it broke up in the immediate future. So for the next 4 hours, it went up. So this is a breaking formation, and you just have to be aware of that. And if you're referencing back to BO203 trend lines, this is just breaking a trend line, and then you just trade the breakout of that. So that's easy. Moving on, we have a symmetrical triangle or a wedge, which is a neutral pattern formation because you don't know. It could either go up or down. So pause the video right now to find the pattern formation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's right here. This is quite actually a long symmetrical triangle because it lasted from the last day. I guess this is around 10 p.m. or something, and this is around I think 6 p.m. or something. So this lasted from what I recall when I did this video before. I think this is like 12 hours or 18 hours or something like that, this whole thing. So this is quite a long time for a pattern to flourish. So you have an upward trend line here characterized by higher lows, and a downward trend line there characterized by lower highs, and then eventually got choppy here, and then towards the edge, which I mentioned in BO204 actually in one of the pennants. As soon as it gets to the edge, or the point or the tip of the triangle, it's going to pick a direction usually, and in this case it picked up, and it just breaks out here. So hopefully you found that one. Symmetricals are fun, but I don't like using them as much. You just draw them, and then if they show up, they show up, and then you just prepare yourself for what's about to happen, or prepare for what potentially could happen. Moving on, we have the symmetrical triangle again, and this is the neutral result because it looks like a funnel. You're going to have downward trend line and upward trend line, and then it's just going to get choppy. That's a big giveaway. Hopefully you can find it easily, and hopefully you can spot it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's the funnel. You have this upward trend line, downward trend line. Instead of breaking out a direction, it just decides to consolidate in a tight range. So here you would be playing the trend line bounces, and then here you start getting in your mindset of an SR level bounces and all that stuff. Moving on, we have a bullish flag. There are actually 2 bullish flags in this chart, and we're going to go through both of them. So let's see if you can find the first one. And usually, as I mentioned before in the BO203 trend lines and trending markets, or BO204, I don't remember exactly where, but trending markets in a channel, you like the lightning bolt shape. This is characterizing a lightning bolt. Okay, it looks like a lightning bolt, and technically, if you look at it, each part of the lightning bolt looks like a flag. You have a flag going up, and then you have another flag, and then you have another flag. So I just gave you a big hint there. In a trend, they come sequentially. So hopefully you find the first one. So I'm going to pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first one is right here, small one. And then basically if you found this one, you should know where the next one is because it comes sequentially right after that anyways. Although the next one looks kind of weird because it breaks down and then it goes back up. So I'm going to pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's right there. This one is a false breakout right there because if you notice, when we zoom in, this is one single red bar. So that's kind of a spike. So a spike, false breakout, and then eventually it just goes right back up, and then it goes up here. And that's what you're looking for. And these are all check marks. Check mark, question mark, because not really sure because of this false breakout. But once you draw these, you're just going to start noticing them, and then you trade them accordingly. Moving on, we have another bullish flag situation, and there are 3 in this diagram. Again, they're all sequential, and the third one is kind of tricky, but the first 2 should be straightforward. So I'm going to pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the first one, small one again. They always start small and then they go big. See, because you have this length here, and the next one is going to be slightly bigger, and the last one is going to be even bigger. And that's usually how they work, because that's what the lightning bolt looks like. So pausing again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the next one. Right? It's just sequential. There's a flag, then another flag, and then where's the next flag? I mean, use your imagination. And you really do have to, this is where your creativity comes into play, because when you're drawing your trend lines and your support resistance levels, you have to be creative there. And then when you're looking for patterns or trying to fit the patterns or seeing the patterns, you have to be creative, because they're not always textbook perfect, because they could be slanted, they could be at an angle, they could be whatever position weirdly. See, I drew the axe like this flag. See, this flag is a different angle from this flag, so maybe the next one's going to be a different angle too. You know, something to think about. So let's pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the next one looks like this. different angle again. They all have different angles, but they're all flags, and they all result in a breakout. As soon as it breaks that resistance line, it breaks out. That's just how it is. So moving on to bearish flag. So this is the opposite of a bullish flag, and these are still continuation formations, and there is one flag formation. I just want to find one. There may be multiple, but I want to find one. Basically in an unmarked area. That's a big hint. So let's pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is right there. You got a flagpole, you have your flag, and then it breaks down. It's basically the only unmarked area. These are all trends. They don't really have flags, although you could draw a small flag there, or maybe, you know, a small flag there. You could draw them, but they're not really that great. This is an actual real flag. It looks more like a flag. So that's it for this. Moving on, we have the double tops and double bottoms and all that stuff. Personally, I do not actually focus on double tops and bottoms, because if you think about it, when you draw your SR levels, you're just expecting it to bounce anyways. So basically, you draw your high probability levels and then you just trade a bounce. So let's see if you guys can find the double top. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, there's only 2 tops, or maybe at most 3 or 4 tops here, but 2 of the prominent ones are the tops. So let's pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here you go. You have the 2 tops here, and as I mentioned before, they can be slanted. They don't have to be perfectly on the blue line, because that would be a straight line. This is actually a slant, so it's more of a trend line, but there's no other bounce coming up. Here, basically, you have a slanted double top, and basically the support would be around here somewhere, because this bounced there, and it bounced here and there, but it broke out there, which is, I guess, news or false breakout or something, and then came back up to test your old resistance, and then it drops down and it breaks down. And this is a check mark because you want to go down. That's the typical result. It goes up and then down. That's just how it is. Moving on, we have a double bottom. This double bottom actually looks like a Gartley, because this, technically, if you look at it, looks like a W. That's a big hint right there, and you can see multiple W's here and maybe even a few M's here, depending on what you're looking at. But there is a double bottom, and it's kind of small, so try to find the most prominent breakouts, and that should indicate where the pattern is. So let's pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you found it, and here it is. Double bottom, support, resistance up there, double bounce. It looks like a W, which also looks like a Gartley if you think about it. And then you have your breakout, and this is check mark. Basically, they're all check marks. Only one of them had an X, and one of them had a question mark. But most of these are check marks because I want to show you guys the typical results. Moving on, we have the Gartleys now. This is a bearish Gartley, which is a reversal pattern. So this is the beginning of the reversal patterns. We have Gartleys, and then you have head and shoulders. So bearish Gartley, looking for a butterfly. This actually looks like a nice butterfly, and seeing if you can find a W-shaped butterfly somewhere inside here. So we're gonna pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you found it. There it is. That's a butterfly. You just have to be creative when you're drawing these things. Trend line, trend line, trend line, trend line, and then the top part is not actually a trend line. It's just connecting the highs to the lows, right? Because there's if you get technical, you aside from this one, it does touch, but this one does not have anything in the middle here. So you gotta make sure that you can be kind of creative when you spot these butterflies or bats. I don't know, it depends on who you talk to. It might be a bat or butterfly, something with wings that looks like this. This looks more like a butterfly to me, so I just call them butterflies. And then typical result is it reverses, which is you see this big downtrend that follows afterwards. For those of you that watched episode 4 of the old series for pattern formations, in that video I couldn't find a bullish Gartley either, so I don't have one for this one. So we're just going to be doing bearish Gartley again. So again, find another bearish Gartley and really be creative, because it's not textbook perfect. It's kind of slanted. So imagine a butterfly trying to fly away in an angle that you see in a cartoon or National Geographic movie or something like that. So let's pause again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. It's kind of slanted. The wings are kind of, it's like it's in motion, right? You just be creative. You ignore this part and you just draw straight to the low, and you draw it up, and then it goes down. 2 more examples. Head and shoulder now. Head and shoulder is kind of weird because you need to be really creative when you see the head and the 2 shoulders. The shoulders may be off and it might be crooked, and you just try to fit it here, and basically you're trying to form a human being, because you draw the arm and then the shoulder and then the head and then the shoulder and then the arm that follows. So let's see if you guys can find it. Let's pause the video again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is, right there. The neckline is like that. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then breaks down. Last example. Also another head and shoulder, except this is inverted. Reversal pattern formation again, and the neckline is not perfect. It's not straight. Could be slanted, and basically that's it. So have fun. Pause the video again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you found it. Looks like this. Neckline is a trend line actually, and basically if you're trading trend lines and all that stuff, this is breaking the trend line, and you trade a breakout out of the trend, because this lasted a certain while. So this is the hourly chart. This lasted 2 days, so this trend line lasted 2 days, and then eventually it's going to break out, and then you trade a breakout. That's it. Otherwise, if you're trading pattern formations, this looks like an inverted head and shoulder reversal pattern. So it just might just happen later on, because it forms this left shoulder and then this head and then this right shoulder. So you're looking sometime in the future it might start breaking out, and that's just your mindset. As you realize this while you're drawing your trend lines and your SR levels, you realize that there's actually a pattern information that could happen. So that's it for the chart examples. I've done 15 of them. Hopefully you enjoyed this style of testing or lessons. I can't really do this for any other lesson, because with strategies I need to show you specific trade examples for SR levels, trend lines, and all that stuff. I need to show specific trade examples, so I can't really test you in that regard. Maybe in the future, maybe in another series, I might have like a separate test series, so that could be in the works, where I just show you a chart, pause the video, what do you think of this chart, and then the next slide will show the breakout or trend lines, or where would you draw your SR level, something like that, something so that we can test you, something like that. I don't know. Well, that's a work in progress, but that's it. I'm done with this lesson. So as usual, my recommended brokers are 24 Option, Bank to Browning, and Trade Rush. Make sure you guys use my links when you sign up, so you can get an hour of tutoring with me. Full details can be found at ftstutor.com. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time.